Hello and welcome back to the Student Midwife Notes podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about a highly requested topic, which I probably promised you all a long time ago, but I'm hoping now is the right time to post it for you. It is all about how to get a job as a newly qualified midwife and the application process and what it involves, what you got to do, all of that. So I've broken it down into 4 sections, which includes the application, writing a personal statement, assessments, and interviews. So I'm just going to basically run through all of the basics, what it involves, what you've got to do for it, and give you my best advice as well about each section. Hopefully you can find that helpful. If you want to see more about me, I'm sharing my life as a newly qualified midwife on Instagram. If you don't already follow me there, I also have a YouTube channel where I post these podcasts and occasional other videos about my life and support for students, etc. So I've recently changed my name. It's now Notes of a Midwife, so you won't find me under Student Midwife Notes anymore. It's now Notes of a Midwife, so if you want to find me, type that in. On YouTube, I think I'm still Student Midwife Notes because I'm putting this podcast on there, and I'm going to keep this as Student Midwife Notes because this is obviously for the students. So let's crack into it. So in order to apply for a midwifery job, there's a couple ways you can go about it. A lot of trusts, if you're training there as a student midwife, they'll offer you jobs. They could just offer you straight outright a job. I know some trusts do that, or they will tell you when they're opening their applications and you can submit it through them. If you're applying to a different trust, I applied to a couple different trusts. There's a couple websites you can use. One called NHS Jobs, which is the one that I used, and then one called Track.jobs. You can find those by a quick Google search, and those are websites where you can get alerts for when jobs locally to you come out, and also look at job openings and sort of get a feel for what sort of things they might ask you. If it's a little too soon for you to look at applications yet, you can always look at ones which are going on at the moment and then, take notes and for when you're ready to actually make your applications. So these websites, they have templates for their applications, so you don't need to fill in like a full CV. They have templates in like a CV style for like your personal details, like, your date of birth, address, yada, 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 and like previous experience and like your university and your grades and all of that. So you don't need to put that into like one document and send it off as a CV. You can fill that out on the template. It makes it a lot easier for you, and you can save that for every application. And then obviously you add in the personal statement. So on these websites, there's not really a limit to how many applications you can put in. Obviously, if you get rejected from a trust, they might tell you that you can't apply for 6 months or something like that. I know some places do that, or they let you try one more time. But hopefully you won't be having to do that. So my best advice is when you see these applications, you need to read the job description and the person specification. Hopefully you won't be shocked by these because you should know what the job description of a midwife is by this point in your studies, but it's a good reminder for things that you should be including in the personal statement, and that's the main reason why I say you must read these. They're different trust to trust, but the basis is still the same. But the more specific you make each personal statement to each trust, the more successful you're going to be. Because when you are applying for a job, they score you. So they score you on your application, they'll score you on your tests, and they'll score you at your interview. And a lot of trusts, as far as I'm aware, score you based on how well your personal statement matches up to what they've put on their person specification and job description, because they'll include like qualities of a person that they want, like desirable and essential, things like that, and it will have all of them listed out. And what you've got to do when you write a personal statement is basically include real life examples of how you display the characteristics in the job description and person specification. I know it sounds simple, and really it is not complicated, but it can be quite a daunting task. I remember I worried about it for a very long time, and it took me a very long time to write my first one. But once I got the first one out of the way, the other ones are much easier because you sort of understood what you were doing. My best advice for this is if you're at university, use your university as a hand. They are usually very good at giving you this sort of advice. They have templates and guides on how to write a job application, but I know sometimes they're not always great at being specific to midwifery. My university, it was like a joint one for midwifery and nursing, and it basically just showed you how to find NHS jobs. It wasn't as helpful, but there are universities out there, which if yours isn't very good, that have all of their advice just online for free. Like, you can access it just through a Google search. I can't remember the university which I went on, but literally after a quick Google search, I had their whole advice sheet, and it was so helpful. So you can just Google that and find that, and then you can see what sort of things you need to be including in that personal statement. But as a background, it's usually about a 1,000 to 1,500 word limit. And yeah, you need to really tailor it to real life examples to that person's specification. So if in the person specification, it wants you to say that you've got experience, independently working, being an autonomous practitioner, you can say, in my third year, I completed a caseloading assignment where I worked by myself with long arm mentoring. I had great outcomes for my women. I was awarded excellent in that area. I've got top grades, etc. And just pull in each and every example. For them, they know that you probably would have completed a midwifery degree. So is everyone else applying for that job. So you need to also pick the things out of your experiences and your life that make it specific to you. So were you a member of your midwifery society? Did you mentor younger students? Did you do an elective placement? Did you do, what do you do outside of uni, which it has expanded your knowledge and your experience, and that's going to benefit your application and your midwifery career? Are you a hypnobirthing practitioner? Do you provide antenatal education? Are you a breastfeeding support worker? What is it that you've invested in yourself to make yourself the better midwife? And obviously include that, because that's what's going to make you desirable as a candidate, because obviously everyone's going to be completing a midwifery degree. But then again, there's aspects of your midwifery degree, as long as you just need to pull them out and apply them. So you can literally, obviously most people caseload, most people write a dissertation, everyone has a placement on the postnatal ward, but you can pull out your specific experiences. I remember I spoke about an experience where I was on the postnatal ward, and we had a call in from one of the children's wards, and there was a woman on there whose baby had been readmitted and she needed breastfeeding support. And it was a really busy day on the postnatal ward, and none of the midwives could go because they were so busy. And I just said, you know what, I'll go. I'm confident in my breastfeeding support. And so I went, I gave her the breastfeeding support, and then I also went as far to set up her further support in the community. And I made sure that I mentioned that. So obviously it's highlighting me understanding the importance of ongoing care and not just going and giving a quick fix of some breastfeeding support. I'm understanding it's a long issue, which, I know what my local services are. I can put something in place for that woman and ensure she has follow-up care. So that was a good example for me. I'm sure every single one of you will have an experience similar to that. Maybe it's in the community, antenatal ward, labour ward. There's loads of different examples. But something like that you want to put in, because that is obviously specific to you. No one else will have had that experience. So yeah, anything that will make you stand out, basically. And also, as I said before, tailor it to the trust, not just talking about, what's in their person specification, job description, but the trust values. They are so important at interview. If you don't cover that, that's the basics not covered, and you're already on the back foot. The trust values, knowing those, understanding those, and incorporating those is a really easy way to get points on your application. So yeah, all you have to do is a quick Google, and you'll find them, and then you can obviously easily apply them to your life, basically. And just a couple sentences in your application talking about how you are that person, you fit that trust, is a quick way to show that you have put effort in to get to know the trust, that you're clearly interested, and that also you are that person that they're looking for, basically. And yeah, always know the trust values, because they come in handy in your interview as well. And if you pick those out, that looks really good. You want to show that you're interested in that trust. Obviously, do some research around it and find out specific things that they're doing as well. The trust which I now work at, which is when I was doing my application, I knew they were setting up and had some areas of continuity of care going on. Thankfully, I had a friend who was trained there, so I got all the inside information. But just me looking for that and clearly showed that I was interested, so I was able to incorporate that into my personal statement. So I'm really interested in continuity of care. I see that it's something that you offer, so it's something I'm excited to get involved in if you were to offer me a place working there. And it shows that you've put that extra effort in to get to know the place, and that you clearly are interested. It wasn't just a throwaway application. Even your safety applications, make it out like it's your first choice, because you're more likely to obviously get offers. And always, just as a last point, put in your personal interests. If you've got an interest for research, talk about that. Talk about things you've read. if you love low risk care, talk about that. Kind of mention where you think you're going in the future. It shows to them that you're looking at a long career in midwifery. You've got aspirations. You care about, women. You care about all the birthing person. You care about all of that, and you can. I would hesitate to include statistics and things in this section because that's not about you. Knowing about your current issues, your embrace, your better births, all of that save that for your interview, and I'll get onto that one in a minute. So keep the personal statement specific to you, but remember the background knowledge is also important. But you can mention a little bit about that in your personal interest section if it's relevant, depending on what you want to talk about. If it's breastfeeding, talk about breastfeeding, whatever, you get what I mean, I hope. So hopefully your personal statement would have impressed them, and they would offer you to come in for an interview or online, however they're doing it at the moment, obviously with COVID, but obviously at some point we'll go back to having face-to-face interviews, I hope. Some trusts, they will expect you to complete an assessment. That might be online, or that might be like a day to come in and complete an assessment before the interview. Some trusts do assessment on the day and an interview no matter what that you've got in the assessment. For where I'm working at the moment, you had to go and do a separate assessment day, pass all of the assessments, and then get invited to the interview. These assessments are really important because, as I said, it gets you the points. You should know basically everything in the assessment section anyway. So it's quite easy to get full marks if you know what to expect. I know I did quite well at my assessment. I don't think I got quite full marks, but I was very, very close. So I believe I am in a good place to be giving good advice on this topic. But most assessments will include a drugs calculation paper, a CTG paper, some form of emergency scenario where you obviously detail what you would do, and then some include like a care plan as well. I'll talk through what I sort of had to do. So the first thing I did was my drug calc paper, which is your basic drug calc paper, which everyone hopefully would have done at university. I know some universities don't cover that as in depth. I know mine didn't. So in order to practice for that, some universities do provide you with access to the website Self-Medicate. If they don't, I would really recommend you buy it. I bought it for myself. It was about £10 for like the full package 6-month subscription, and hopefully you will have gotten a job within that 6 months that you've had it for. If not, you can just renew it, and again, it's very inexpensive and it's a really good investment. It goes through like loads of different types of drug calculations, from pill, what word am I looking for, like PO, oral medications, that's the one, oral medications, to intramuscular injections and medications, subcut, all the way up to IVs and doing drip rates, because I know some trusts still do quiz students on how to work out a drip rate. It's not used very widely anymore, but it's a good skill to have just because it shows that you do have that brain, you do have that ability to work out calculations, and you can go through all of that on Self-Medicate. So practice on there, and then when you go to do your paper, hopefully it won't be a problem for you. I think they expect you to get 100% on the drug calculations paper, or like you can get one wrong. I think I must have got one wrong on the drug calc paper because it asked me some crazy question like, what's the max daily dose for codeine phosphate? And I had no idea. Like, I still couldn't even tell you right now what that is. But obviously we have the BNF and things, and we can look that up. So I thought that was a bit of a crazy question to ask. But obviously if you knew, good for you. But I don't know that off the top of my head. So I'm sure they weren't asking for 100%. So I think maybe they had like an 80% success rate. But obviously some may ask for 100% because that is kind of expected at this level for the calculations. Obviously not knowing about the specific drug, but you should be able to calculate, volume, dose, per hour, and work out weights and stuff for that. And Self-Medicate is a great way to practice for that. For a CTG paper, my best advice for that is to, if you know someone who works at that trust, get them to send you over their guideline, because each trust uses different guidelines. So some might use NICE, some might use FIGO, some might use something else, which I don't know about. So where I trained used NICE, and where I work now uses FIGO. So it was really good for me to have a great understanding. But the basic understanding, and it doesn't really matter what guideline you're using with this, is understanding fetal physiology and the physiology of like hypoxias, the different types of hypoxia. So you've got your acute hypoxia, your subacute hypoxia, gradually evolving hypoxia. What's the last one? Oh my gosh, I can't even think what it is now. acute, subacute, gradually evolving, and chronic hypoxia, of course. So knowing those 4 and knowing how to differentiate between the 4 is the basics. So you should obviously know that already, really, or be learning it if you're in your 3rd year. Sometimes it doesn't click for a while, and CCGs are quite difficult. But yeah, those are the basics you should know. And then your management. The management is what may differ trust to trust. So if you can get hold of the guidelines specific to that trust, do that. My friend Amy, thankfully, sent me over the guidelines for the trust which I now work at. So then I was able to tailor my answers to that. So know about, your common things like your rules of 3 when it comes to an acute hypoxia, like what you want to do, recovery times and statistics, 90% of acute hypoxias recover within 6 minutes or something like that. That's probably not the exact scenario. Is it within 9 minutes? I don't know, but that's why you need to really revise that and just have it at the top of your brain for the interview. They don't expect you to know that all the time, but for the interview, you should know that, really, and know about how epidurals affect CTG, and what to do in the scenario if someone came in with a chronic hypoxia, how serious that is, and then just talk about your management and what you would do in that scenario to identify. Really, in the paper, you need to identify the type of hypoxia and then talk about your management, and that's what they'll expect you to do. And you can do that quite simply if you understand the guidelines and the fetal physiology, and obviously maternal physiology a little bit. About that, they're all kind of simple, but obviously it's quite complex knowledge that you need, and obviously in the moment it could be quite stressful. So make sure that you revise plenty so you feel confident when you go in there. And then the emergencies. For me, I sat down face to face with another staff member and spoke to an emergency. They basically just said, tell me everything about PPH, what you would do in the scenario of a PPH. And again, if you can get hold of the trust guidelines, get hold of them. If not, you can just put a disclaimer at the beginning and say, there might be some differences because I've come from a different trust, but this is what I would do in that scenario. And obviously, if I was working here, I would make sure that I'm up to date on your guidelines and that I would practice within those. And they will obviously accept that and be happy to, agree. It's very minute differences. Like, for example, management of a PPH, it might be the difference between using carboprost and, I can't think of the word. The tablets. I can't even think what they're called now. It's really misoprostol. Some trusts go straight for misoprostol, some use carboprost. Some have TXA in their guidelines, some don't. So you can just talk about that basically and what you would do in the scenario. And really, it's more about escalation and teamwork and all of that. So make sure you mention that and just go through your emergencies, which you should know by now as a 3rd year. I'm sure you would have had your emergencies exam, so just hot up on all of those. I know other trusts sometimes like to throw a little curveball. I know some of the girls who I trained with who applied to a different trust got asked about DKA, so diabetic ketoacidosis, which is very, very rare, obviously, and it's not always something that you know about as a student. So just try and understand know about the common issues within pregnancy. So obviously that's a question about a diabetic woman. So know about your diabetes, your preeclampsia, your OC, just in case. It's less common to be asked about that sort of stuff, but sometimes it does happen. And in that scenario, the trust won't expect you to have the most in-depth knowledge and 100% knowledge as they do with the common emergencies such as your PPH, your APH, your shoulder dystocia, breech, cord prolapse, all of that stuff. But they will expect you to have some background knowledge and understanding of why specific things are an issue. So just be hot on all of those topics. Things that you would generally see on a delivery suite. It's very delivery suite focused, I feel, interview processes, which kind of makes sense because it's the most high risk area. But yeah, that's just what it is. And I also had to fill out a care plan whilst I was there. It was a little written paper. They gave me a scenario and some notes, and they said, fill this out as if you were triaging this woman. A care plan. They'll give you the scenario and they'll say, they'll give you all the information and all of the papers, and you just write what you would do and write your plan. Basically, it's quite simple. Try not to overthink it. I know a lot of people overthink that section, but they do give you hints and clues. So just fill out everything they've given you and then just write exactly what you would do in that scenario. And then hopefully, if you've done all of that correctly and they've impressed by you, they'll either call you back for an interview, or you'll have your interview later on in the day, because they don't care about what your mark is. They just look at it all afterwards. So with the interviews, I had a face-to-face interview. I know a lot of them at the moment are over Zoom or Teams or whatever. I believe that is more difficult. I had a mock interview over Teams, which it was okay. It wasn't my favourite thing, but it was just fine. So don't be too worried about having it online. I'm sure you should still be able to put across your enthusiasm. I did my whole interview in my mask, and I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I have my mask on? Because I was socially distanced from the interviewers, and when I went back and spoke to my friends who was interviewed, they were like, nah, I took my mask off. I'm like, oh my gosh, I did my whole thing in my mask. But hopefully they didn't notice, but you probably won't have that issue now. So with the interview, most of the times you've already passed or completed the assessment, so they'll know what your ability is academically and clinically. So the interview is more about getting to know you as a person, and, you know, getting across your confidence and enthusiasm and passion for midwifery. So my best advice is to just go in and be confident. Power pose before you go in. I genuinely believe in the power of power posing. If you've not heard of what that is, there's a TED talk about it. It's basically just standing in an open, powerful position for a couple minutes before you go and do something that makes you nervous, and it just makes you feel more confident. I don't know how it works, but it does work. I've done it for like every interview I've ever done, and I've always got the job or the role or whatever, and I believe power posing has something to do with it. Be hot on your current issues for your interview. Don't, as I said before, don't so much mention all about in your personal statement, but make sure you're knowledgeable about it for the interview. So your embrace, your better births, anything going on specifically local to you, know about that. So yeah, embrace reports, know about your ethnic minorities and your, you know, outcome disparities, know about racism, that's a current issue, know about language and inclusivity, and just be prepared to talk about that sort of stuff. And definitely do not shy away from it. Shying away from those topics will make you look bad. So be clued up, read up, and open to talking about it. And that's the bottom line, basically, because it's things that you face in your workplace. There's no way to hide from it in the workplace, so you need to show that you're confident, able to face up to those issues. And they will ask you about them. Well, I'd hope they ask you about them anyway. So they just want to get a feel for your personality and make sure that you will be a good fit in the team. And that's just the basis of what any job interview is, basically. But they'll probably also ask you about things like workplace culture, team working, resilience. And don't be afraid to literally be really honest. I was asked about resilience in my interview, and I was honest. I said I don't believe in the typical definition of resilience, which is just like put up and shut up, you know. And then obviously I expanded upon that. If you want to know more about that, you need to listen to Leah Hazard. She has amazing... she speaks about resilience amazingly. She doesn't believe in it, and I definitely agree with what she's saying. But just with the personal statement, when they ask you a question, talk until they tell you to shut up. This was the feedback that I got from my mock interview at my uni. They said I did well, but I passed it just, but I didn't do like 100%, I didn't do perfectly on the mock. And they said, you stopped too soon. It said, when you're in an interview, don't worry about taking up too much time. They said, talk until they tell you to shut up. So in my real interview, that's what I did. I just spoke about topics until I really felt like they were done, they were over it. You know, for the first amount, they'll like write everything that you're saying, and they'll write the good points. At the point when they really stop writing, you can stop talking, because you've obviously got your point across. But don't be afraid to talk forever. If they had enough, they'll just tell you, okay, we've had enough, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's better to talk too much than talk too little. And I'm aware that I'm rambling on in this podcast, but you get what I mean. It's better to do it that way. Where was I going with that? I don't even remember. So yeah, they'll ask you about topics, and you just got to talk from the heart and be honest. They want to know your personality, and they know the by the book answers. They already half expect the answers that they're going to get. If you can add something a little bit more interesting, if you know a bit more about a specific topic, put that in. Definitely, it will make you stand out. And as I said, real life examples. You say, oh yeah, I know about that, and then talk about a time in which you displayed that real life examples are the only ways to prove that you've actually done something, And then this is again a time to talk about your involvement in societies, talks that you've done, things that you've read, etc., etc. I was speaking about my dissertation in mine because I thought it was like really fitting, and I was really passionate about my dissertation. And then obviously research again was something that I highlighted that I was interested in, and that just all tied it together. It doesn't matter if that's not your specific area of interest, but if you think that you can manipulate a question to go down a road of talking about something you love, always do that, because it's going to be an answer that maybe they weren't expecting, and it's going to show more about you and your personality and make you stand out. So manipulate the questions that they're asking. Obviously give them the answer that they want to hear, and then you can take it off on a little tangent and down a road that maybe they weren't expecting, and that will be impressive to them, I hope. And that's pretty much it. Obviously, you probably want to know about, what should I wear to my interview? Smart clothes. Even if people say, it's a casual thing, they're not, like, you don't have to wear, like, full office attire. Always dress up a little bit more than maybe people say. Because I know it shouldn't really matter, but I really do believe in, like, showing up for what you want. And if you're thinking, in the future, I don't want a management role, I want to be in your seat, dress like you have their job already. And it does something to your brain mentally when you dress up, and it does something to their brain. Maybe it's not perfect psychology, and maybe it's not like the most, perfect thing. I don't know what I'm trying to say with this, but it's important to dress up and give a good first impression. So smile. Even if you've got a mask on, smile the whole time. They can tell you're smiling through your mask. Ask them questions, and definitely at the end of your interview have a question ready. I asked them, tell me about something which is exciting about this place that you like. What do you find exciting about what is going on in this hospital, in this unit at the moment? What makes you excited to come to work? Because obviously that got me a feel for the fact that they love their jobs, exciting things that are happening in this hospital, things that I want to get involved in, And yeah, be honest. Honesty is the best thing, because I believe when you are your true self and you're honest, you get the best feedback and you gel with the person. You can have a laugh in your interview, make them laugh if you can. Not like, obviously, jokes, but I don't know how else to put it. But you can just have a little bit of banter, but not unprofessional banter, like friendly chit-chat. Because they want someone friendly who's joining their team. It's just show your personality. And yeah, have questions to ask. If they loved you at your interview, they call you back and they say, oh my goodness, Jessica, we loved you in that interview. You smashed your assessment. Your personal statement shows that you're clearly well equipped for this job. We would love to offer you this job. You can say, wow, I'm so thankful for the opportunity to interview. I'm really grateful. And you don't have to accept the job straight away. Obviously, if you know this is your only place that you're applying and you want to work there, you can accept the job straight away for sure. But you do not have to accept straight away if you don't want to, because obviously you can wait for your other applications to come through. But obviously this is in an ideal world. If, nerves get the better of you the day, you're a little bit unprepared, or, something didn't go quite right on the day and you get a rejection, always ask for feedback. If they don't provide you feedback, that's incredibly disappointing and kind of unprofessional. You should always provide feedback, especially if you've interviewed someone. So get that feedback and work on it. Apply it for your next application. Pick yourself up and go again. Some places just might not be the right fit for you, and that's not your fault. I believe everything happens for a reason. You will get the job that you deserve and that you work hard for, and then that fits you the best. So pick yourself back up and go again. Always apply what you've learned each time. And most specifically, this is so important, tailor your every application to each place that you're applying to. It just looks better. It's a tiny little bit of extra effort with a big payoff. So tailor your personal statement, include, details specific to that trust. And then when you're talking in your interview, include those trust values. And they'll always ask you, like, what made you pick this place? And always have an answer for that question, because 100% they'll ask you about that. But yeah, I hope you found this helpful. If you have further questions, you can, DM me on Instagram about it. But I'm hoping this will be enough to get you through it, basically. Just to put it out there, I will not be reading through people's personal statements. I've been asked in the past to read through people's personal statements and give them advice, but that's not a service that I provide. I'm giving you the advice here, so hopefully your personal statement will be good enough from this advice. So please don't send me your personal statement or ask for like a lot of individual personal help. I'm happy to answer your questions, but yeah, please do just DM me on Instagram if you have those questions. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. Please do follow me on Instagram, give it a like, give it a follow, and let me know if there's anything more you want to hear from me soon.